Hello, everybody, and welcome to Money Matters. If you like making money, enjoy learning about crypto and other investment topics, please subscribe to the channel. If you like the content, then hit that like button as well. Let's get going. As usual, this channel is devoted to your financial freedom. And as a disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor, nor do I give financial nor investment advice. If you need such advice, please seek out the help and services of an accredited financial advisor. Let's take a look at the market. Well, I was a day off. However, we have had our recovery. I think it was about $7,000 in Bitcoin over 20 hours to get back into the mid 50s, but it's back and we look good. Things are looking green. The only non-surprise was Ethereum. It never had that big drop and it already popped over 2,500. So we're sitting very pretty there. The altcoins I'm looking for over the next 2 weeks, at least hoping for, that they will detach in price from Bitcoin and start back on the altcoin season run to their new all-time highs, making everybody who's invested in them wealthy beyond all expectations. Today, we're going to look at the adoption curve for Bitcoin. Currently, the adoption rate in the United States stands for, this is for Bitcoin and crypto in general, at about 10%. That's more than most of the world, but that's unbelievably low. Investors who want exposure to Bitcoin can buy futures, they can buy Bitcoin directly, or they can buy the Grayscale GBTC shares from the GBTC fund on through their investment vehicles such as Fidelity or Ameritrade or something like that. But that's pretty much it. The only ETFs that are available are the two that are in Canada that launched last week that are already over $1 billion. Remember, the more accessible Bitcoin becomes, the easier it is for Bitcoin to hit its stride on the adoption curve. And its accessibility, Bitcoin needs to be available to the investing masses through ETFs. It's really the only way for right now to be seen, because there's a lot of traditional investors, people who have money, a lot of money, in retirement accounts or in investment accounts in their traditional brokerage houses or their investment companies. And they want a nice, clean way to invest in crypto. An ETF would solve that problem and it would solve it immediately. So it is the key for the future adoption of Bitcoin, not only in this country, but throughout the world. Let's take a look at a traditional adoption curve. Remember, the more accessible Bitcoin becomes, the easier it is for people to get it and to adopt it. So the adoption curve will move along the adoption curve accordingly. So if you look at this curve, you can see that there's innovators, there's early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. Right now, the red arrow is pointing to the general area where we are right now. That's the 10% that I alluded to earlier. So if you own Bitcoin, if you're watching this video, you are still in the very, very early stages of this. And you're ahead of 90% of the people, at least in the United States. A lot of people have pointed to this curve, as you can read here, and they'll say, hey, this is what the adoption curve looks like. Here's where we are in this adoption curve. And I would agree that that's where we are. However, is this really an accurate depiction of an adoption curve, especially when you consider Bitcoin? Let's take a look. This curve, or these curves, I should say, are a bit more accurate, at least in my mind. These have to do with technology. So we have electricity, telephones, washing machines, colored TVs, air conditioners, things like that. You can look at some commonalities here. And I think outside of the washing machine and dishwasher, most of these have a fairly steep adoption curve. In other words, they start out and then when they become available, adoption kicks in and they go parabolic. They just take off like there's no tomorrow. This is what we were looking at for Bitcoin. This is the type of curve, not the traditional bell-shaped curve. This is what we're looking at for Bitcoin. So let's take a little bit closer look. And remember, this time frame is very, very short. We're not looking at decades here. We're looking at a number of years, and we'll get a very close estimate here. So let's take a look at what the adoption curve for Bitcoin might look like in a comparison with gold. We can look at the historical launch of the ETFs for gold and see what might happen or what might be in store for Bitcoin. So in 2003, the first gold ETF launched in Australia, and about 20 months later, the United States launched their first gold ETF. Those two events are marked in white lines on this chart to the right. So the first arrow is for the Australian ETF, and the second arrow, or the top arrow, is for the United States ETF. What happened here was it allowed for a completely new on-ramp for people that didn't have to go buy gold. They didn't have to buy shares of gold. They could actually go and buy a fund through their investment broker or through their own investment account and have exposure to gold. Very easy, through an ETF. Very, very easy. Look what happened to the price of gold after the United States opened its ETF. That's a pretty steep curve, hockey stick up to the right. This is what we are looking at in the crypto market today. You could look at the first line and say, that's the Canadian Bitcoin ETF. And the second line, whenever that does take place, will be the ETFs that are available in the United States. And what follows shortly thereafter, well, you can see it's a pretty picture. Let's just put it that way. So let's put this all together. What does it mean? Well, the fastest part of the adoption curve is in the beginning, and this is for technology type things. And certainly Bitcoin is probably one of the most, if not the most, technologically advanced opportunity that people have seen. I know it's in my lifetime, and I've seen a lot of stuff in my lifetime. So we still don't know the brevity of it, but I can tell you, I can assure you that it is going to be sweeping. Considering the adoption curve typically, and this is for regular adoption curve, just for typical items, takes between 5 and 10 years to get from 20 to 80%. We can look at technological type curves for cell phones or the internet or computers or something like that. And we're looking at somewhere between 2.5 to 5 years to reach that 80%. If we look at Bitcoin now and we're at 10% and we use those years, we can say that, well, if we have the chance of becoming far-fetched in this adoption curve via an ETF, once that happens, we're looking at a parabolic price run within the next 2 to 5 years. And of course, we can refer back to the gold chart and see that plain and simple. Let's recap and look at this, just kind of summarize it and put it into perspective. First of all, we just want to revel in the glory of coming out of the doldrums in the market and noting that everything has come up and is doing much better than it was. And again, I really do look for this to trend up and to the right at a better than slow pace. And I do look for the altcoins to detach somewhere along this retracement line. And my guess is between 62 up to 72,000. So be on the lookout for that. But back to the adoption curve. We took a look at several types of curves, and they had to do with different philosophies and usually different types of technologies or things that would go onto that curve. And we've ascertained that Bitcoin is more in the lines of a technology like the internet or cell phones or something like that. We looked at the tremendous growth that came in the price of gold after the on-ramp, or the ability for people to attain exposure to gold, became much easier. So when they didn't have to go down or dig it out of the ground or go down to the store and buy gold, they could actually just call up their broker or go online and purchase it through an ETF, through their brokerage or investment account. It became much easier. And once that happened, the demand went up significantly. Imagine, all of a sudden, millions of people have the ability to buy gold overnight. Has the amount of gold changed overnight? No. Will the amount of Bitcoin change overnight? Hell no. So once that happens and millions of people have the ability to buy Bitcoin, and there's no more Bitcoin available, we're talking about 4 million or so, what do you think happens to the price? Right. It goes up and to the right. very, very hard. So if we look at the adoption curve, we're still very, very early, 10% in the United States with room to grow. A lot of that will be caught up here over the next 2 to 5 years. In fact, I'm looking at it, well, actually, you don't have to even think about it. It's something like 2024 is when Bitcoin is going to actually detach from just about everything. So if you take a step back and you think about some of the price predictions, my price prediction for this Christmas was something like 417,000. A lot of people are calling for $500,000 Bitcoin by 2024 or 2025. My guess is it's going to be substantially higher than that. It will detach, or I'm sorry, it will dethrone gold somewhere at the end, around the end of 2022. That's a $10 trillion market cap. But once these ETFs open up the adoption curve and people have an on-ramp to get Bitcoin, it's going to be very hard to predict how fast and how high the price of Bitcoin will go. So it's very exciting. These are very exciting times, and looking at this particular analysis, not complicated at all, but it is very telling, and there's factual evidence behind actual technologies or things. Like gold's not technology, but it was an investment vehicle that people wanted exposure to, and you can see what happened in the past. That will repeat itself. It will. This is economics. This is how it works. It's very scientific in that sense. I would be curious to hear what you think about this analysis and your thoughts on it. And if you have any augmented views, if you have something to add, or if you have some sort of criticism for it to make it better, I would love to hear about them in the comments. And I'm sure everybody would enjoy reading those as well. Scammers, everybody be careful. I go through comments every day and I delete hundreds of them. And this channel isn't even very old. There's a lot of bots out there that, and I didn't know they did this, but they respond to a comment. So either a bot or a person will create a comment, and then these bots will come in and comment on this one comment. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. Anyway, be vigilant. They're looking for your money. They're looking to scam you. You've got to be on your toes 24 hours a day. And in closing, as always, winners never quit and quitters never win. Always give your very best effort to overcome the challenges that you face in life. I hope you had a great day. I had a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.